Good morning. This is Dr. David A. Padgett. This is World Regional Geography 1010, Section 98B. Today is March the 15th, 2021. I'm going to share my screen. Today we're going to start off with a little bit of housekeeping, just a little basic housekeeping, and then we'll move into looking at some of the article reviews that have been turned in thus far, and I'll give some constructive criticism about them. And then we'll get into a lecture on population geography. So first, thank you for actually being here today. Housekeeping note number one is that this is homecoming. This is normally spring break week, but this year, for obvious reasons, spring break is limited to 2 days, March 18th and 19th. So again, I know I've been informed that this is spring break week, but it's actually only 2 days. So we will meet today and we will meet on Wednesday as usual. There will be a slight reprieve. I had originally planned on giving a quiz this week, but I'm not going to do that. The assignments for this week will be the remaining article reviews, and then we'll have a quiz on the human geography of North America next week. So that's just FYI. That's housekeeping note number one. Housekeeping note number two pertains to the grades. So I have, let me go to student view before I do this. I'm gonna go to student view. So the course grades you can find under grades. I don't have any grades because I'm not in the class, but if you go to grades, you'll see your grade for the Unit A exam. Not the research quiz, still working on that. The GIS assignment and the 3 writing assignments that you've had thus far, I will be grading the quizzes, the article reviews this week. Also, you should have those by the time you get back from whatever break you have Thursday and Friday. So again, look those over carefully. In terms of this, determining your standing in the class, you should consult the syllabus. So here's the syllabus. Okay, so notice here are the various elements of your grade. The Unit A exam you just took. There will be a final project. It won't be a group project. It'll just be an individual project. I'll change that for the end of the semester. There will be several research quizzes. You just took the first one last week. Article reviews, there will be 10 of those. Globe assignments for pre-service teachers or people planning careers in teaching. GIS assignments, you've had one of those. You've had 3 writing assignments, and of course, class participation. Okay, so keep in mind that there are 100, 200, 300, 400, 500, 600, 700, 800 possible points in this class, or possible points to be earned, but your grade is based upon a base of 500. So your goal is to get the 450 if you're trying to earn an A. So I'm saying all that, so making that point, because let's say I'm going to stop my share here. I'm going to have to go in as a developer and go to grades. and go to unit A exam and the statistics. And I'm gonna reshare my screen. Okay, so here are the stats for the unit A exam. Notice that the highest score is 86, low score was 0. Average score was 52, median was 58. So let's say you scored, excuse me, 50 or 60 points on the unit A exam. A couple of you did very well. You got into the 80s or close to it. That's fine, because if you notice, if you look at the syllabus, again, there are 800 points possible for you to earn in this class. So even if you completely missed the unit A exam for whatever reason, you just didn't get it done, there are several opportunities for you to make up for those points. Okay. One of them, of course, is to do the weekly article reviews. So I'm going to segue to those. Stop my share for just a moment. And I'm going to segue to the article reviews. And we're going to take a look at those, and I'll provide some constructive criticism. And I will bring the screen back in a moment. So this is constructive criticism. No need to get upset or feel as if I'm picking on anybody. This is to help you do these better. Okay, so I'm going to bring back the screen share. Oh, whoa, 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 whoa. Almost made a big mistake there. Okay, so here is Miss Mullins, political science major, Article 1. Oh, gosh. All instructions followed well to this point. She has a citation there. I guess it looks okay. Then she summarized the article and blah, blah, blah. Decent summary. Okay, I understand. Then, yeah, she's very deliberate. She says, reading this article relates to my major because it involves politics and geography. So it's good. Be very deliberate. Say exactly why you believe that this article is related to your major or career goals. Perfect. Keywords. Oh. Okay, well, we'll go to the next article review. Just I don't know what happened here, but in the future, if you feel like you're gonna miss the deadline, remember all the assignments in this class have a soft deadline. So if you're in the position where you feel as if, oh, I can't get it done, just turn in late. You miss 1 point for every 12 hours it's late. Not a big deal, but it's
That's the one where my Microsoft Word wasn't working, and then I was trying to rush to get it turned in, but I don't know what happened to the rest of them.
yeah, like I said, don't if you're the deadlines are soft. There's a 1 point for every 12 hours late deduction. So yeah, from this point forward, just take your time, turn in late, turn in 11 hours late, don't lose any points. Okay, so just in the future, uh just remember that. Otherwise, that was well done, except for that. So again, all the yeah, 8 hours late. Yeah, even if you had turned it in 23 hours late, you'd only lost 1 point. Okay, so you lost no points for 8 hours late, but you could have taken another 2 hours, turned it in 10 hours late, lost no points. but just for future reference. But that's why we're doing this, so that we all know this. Let's see who else is here. Cheyenne is here. Let's see. Let's get Cheyenne's up here. And let's see. This is interesting. Let's see what this is about. And let's see here. Okay, well, let's see if any of that's in here. Okay, so so again, the instructions for the article reviews are posted at content, and well, they're actually posted in the Dropbox. So if you let me go back here, get into student view. So if you go to student view, go to the Dropbox itself. For the article reviews, notice that you have the instructions for the weekly article review assignments here. And also there's a video with the instructions there. But okay, so citation, and we don't appear to have a citation, so you should have a citation there. So we know what article you're reviewing. So really, you should write this in your own words. See, part of it might be written in, but then we start to get into the weeds here, and so I'll be more impressed if you can explain to me what the article means, or what the main point of the article is in your own words. Let's move on to another one. We get out of student view, go in back into developer role, and let's see the Dropbox. So let's see. Brooks isn't here, but let's take a look at Brooks's anyway. Okay, so let's look at this one. Okay, good. Article 1, name, date, major, citation. So here is the citation here. Article summary. And, okay, decent summary of the article. And then she found an internship and included the link. Okay, it's about media. Oh, good. Geography in the digital age. So there's an article related to her major, which is communications and geography. Summarized it. Found an internship. Keywords, geography, media communications, and new technologies. This is almost perfect, except it is missing a reference to the textbook. Maybe someone will have a reference to the textbook in another one I'll look at. But other than that, it's very well done. And the keywords again are words that represent the main theme or main point of the article itself. And so she says geography, media, communications, new technology, instruments of measurement, so on and so forth. Yeah, so I guess that's a pretty good summary in terms of the keywords of this article review. So this one is a good one, except for it doesn't have a reference to the textbook. Let me see if I can find one that has a reference to the textbook. So that was all of them from, let me see this. I don't think I've seen Childress's. Let's see what she has here. This is an education major, so this one's going to be a little bit different from the other ones. This is a future teacher. See, citation, article summary, Hurricane Katrina. Okay, again, this is articles from 2015, which is fine. The articles don't have to be from the present day, so that's fine. Summarize the article. Okay. Then she's, yeah, she says the standard 7 is most closely related to the article, and she explains why. Perfect. Textbook reference. So here's a textbook reference. So she says in section 1.1 of the Bradshaw textbook. So again, just spell it out. You can just say Bradshaw textbook, section 1.1, reference made to Hurricane Katrina. Perfect. Keywords, canal, levee, New Orleans, so on and so forth. So for the future teachers, we know what their career plans are. So they, instead of connecting their article to some internship, the future teachers are connecting it to the 18 standards for teaching geography at the K through 12 levels. This is a very good article review. I would not take any points off of this one at all. It's done very well. Well, maybe a 1/10 of a point, but not much more than that. Okay, so I just wanted to discuss the article reviews because, of course, they count as a substantial portion of your grade, and it's a pretty easy up to 100 points to pick up. Okay, so like I said, if you, for whatever reason, did not do well, let's say you got 60 out of 100 on unit exam A. If you do 6 article reviews, that could essentially push that to 120, that portion of your grade to 120. If you configured in your head like that, okay, I only got a 60 on the midterm, on unit A exam, but I at least got 6 article reviews done, or at least I got 60 points out of the article reviews. So that really means that my unit, I'll just add that to my unit A exam. So that makes it 120. And then let's say you, your GIS assignments are an 80, that's 200. Let's say your writing assignments are in 80, that's 280. Then on the quizzes, let's say you get another 50, that's 330. Then the GIS assignments, let's say you get another 80, that's 420. And then all you need to do is get 30 points on the final project, 30 points on the final project. And that'll take you to 450. Okay, so it's entirely possible if you continue to work to get an A, if you continue to work and do the assignments and keep working and don't quit, you'll be fine. So I'm just telling you this so that you don't get into despair over not getting the grade you wanted on the unit A exam, or maybe you didn't do the first 2 article reviews for whatever reason. You still have, as you can see, if I go back to student view, as you can see for this week, the only thing you have to do is article review 3 that's not due until 11:30 tonight, PM, 12 hours from now. And remember, the deadline is soft, so you can turn it in 11 hours later than that and still not lose any points. Then article review 4 is, of course, due next week. And so if you continue to do the article reviews, even if you missed the first 2 for whatever reason, you can still get 70 or 80 points towards that 450. And the article reviews are pretty simple. Read an article, write it up according to the guidelines presented, and there you go. So just don't don't neglect the article reviews. They can make a big difference in your grade, and they don't take a whole lot of time to complete if you set your mind. Okay, so I've talked about the grades, article reviews, and what to expect during spring break. For the remainder of the class period, we are going to focus upon the human geography of North America. That's what we've been focusing upon. And so back to the reading assignment, human geography of North America. And our focus today will be upon population geography. It's just as a general concept. And so we're going into the textbook, chapter 2, population and urban geographies. So the first part of the course, Unit A, which was chapters 1, 2, and 13, we'll always refer back to those chapters. Those are the content chapters. The other chapters are regional. So the region that we're discussing at the moment is the United States and Canada. But chapters 1, 2, and 13 have the basic core elements of geography that will be applied in all of the regions, just to let you know why we're in chapter 2 again. So population geography or demography is obviously a very important subfield, if you will, in geography. So again, demography is the study of population. And so when we study population, we have to pay special attention to several different variables. And so one of the variables in measuring human population growth is the crude birth rate. That's the number of births in the population per year. And then we have the crude death rate. In order to get the rate of growth, we would just subtract the death rate from the birth rate. And so in most cases, the birth rate is going to outpace the death rate in most cases. There have been times in human history, obviously, when that was not true. But in recent history, with all the advances in medicine and diet, in most cases, birth rates exceed death rates. But one of the main variables that we use to measure population is the total fertility rate, otherwise known as the TFR, the total fertility rate. And so if we go to the world population data sheet, which is right here, and we download it, this is a reference source that you will use throughout the course. And it has a wealth of information about countries and their populations. And so let's go to the United States and Canada. Scroll through it. And here we have the United States and Canada. Make note of the population of each country. Canada has about 38 million people. And the United States has about 330 million people. So the United States is just less than 10 times larger in population than Canada. Even though Canada is a much larger landmass, our population is much greater than Canada's. But let's look at the variables here. So here we have birth rate, the crude birth rate, crude death rate out of 1,000, you can clearly see that for North America, the birth rate is higher than the death rate, but not by much. And we'll talk about why that is later on. But the variable that we're talking about at the moment is the total fertility rate. And so again, what is the total fertility rate? Total fertility rate is the average number of births per woman during her, really it's during her primary reproductive years, which is usually between the ages of 15 and 45 is that variable is expressed. So that's between the ages of 15 and 45 is when we would expect for women to be having children. And again, the total fertility rate is a variable that is gender grounded, obviously, with women being the gender that gives birth, physically gives birth to human beings. Anything that affects women is going to affect the total fertility rate. So let me just give you an example of that by going into another way that we study population, and that is with the population graph. So here and in the textbook, you'll note that the age sex diagrams are used to measure what we call population structure, really to display population structure, or they're used for the analysis of population structure. So if we go back, here is the population pyramid. Sometimes these age sex diagrams are called population pyramids, and you'll see why later in the course. But if you notice, what we have here is a bar graph on its side, and we have males within the United States population on the left-hand side, females on the right-hand side. Each of these bars represents the numbers of males and females within various age cohorts. So we have perhaps around 10.5 million male children in the United States between 0 and 4 years of age, and we have maybe 10 million girls born, or girls between the ages of 0 and 4. And we'll come back to that point later on. But this is how we would look at population structure. And so some of the things that, or some of the information that is visible in terms of population structure includes the various generations. And so during the last class period, we talked about different generations, Generation Z, the baby boomers, and so on and so forth. But in this population graph, we can clearly see that the baby boomers, who are between about 55 and 75 years of age, notice that bulge out there, which represents a period of time when there was a relatively high fertility rate in the United States. So these individuals who are baby boomers were born approximately between 1944 and 1964. The fertility rate in the United States at that time was 4. In other words, the average woman during the baby boom gave birth to 4 children. Okay, now that number has decreased. And so what were some of the factors in that number decreasing down to where it is today? If we go to the Population Reference Bureau table, you'll see that the fertility rate today is 1.5 for Canada and 1.7 for the United States. In other words, that's the average number of children born per woman in this country. So let me get back into the textbook here. Um, so what does that mean? Well, what that means is that we, that is the United States and Canada, are at zero population growth. That doesn't literally mean that the population isn't growing at all, but we are below the rate of population growth that would more than replace us. And so we, United States and Canada, are at zero population growth. Average number of women today has 1.5 children in Canada, 1.7 children in the United States. So how did that happen? How did we go from having this relatively high fertility rate during the baby boom years to having it be relatively low today? And if we look again at this graph, you'll notice that uh, you know the numbers are getting smaller and smaller as the people get younger and younger. So the fertility rates are getting less and less and less. One reason, obviously, is the 1960s came with birth birth control, contraceptives, the pill, if you will. And so women were able to have a greater control over when or if they became mothers. So obviously that cut down the fertility rate. Other influences included opportunities for women opening up that had not been there before. And so a lot of women who um, might not have even been able to apply for a job as an engineer. Now those opportunities were opening up as the women's rights movement opened doors for women. And they made different choices. I can tell you a personal anecdote. I had a cousin who went to Tennessee State University years and years ago. She was an engineering major. She had a 3.6 GPA. At some point in her junior year, she met a man, and that was the end of engineering. That was it. She was there at Tennessee State University to make me the husband. Um, Left, never finished, had 6 children. I'm sure she was happy, but um, but she had a choice. At least she had a choice. She could have become an engineer, but I guess at that time her mindset was still thinking, I'll marry an engineer, I won't become an engineer. But of course, now that has changed. And so now women are able to become engineers, and that might take a lot of work and a lot of years in the workforce in order to really become established, which means that they will put having children off further, maybe to the time they're 28 or 29. And then when women do things other than having children, put having children off later in life, that results in a lower fertility rate. They're going to have less children on average if you put it off till later in life, and that's just basic biology. Um, so again, birth control pill, opportunities for women opening up, women getting more education, all those things have resulted in that decline in birth rates that we see here, and that's Generation X. Then notice we get this other big bulge, and those are the millennials. So the millennials are essentially the children of the baby boomers. So the baby boomer generation was so large that even though their fertility rates were half of their parents, there was still a lot of children that came along, and that's represented in that millennial generation. But notice now that we're at Generation Z, which essentially are people age 22 and younger approximately now, notice those numbers start to get smaller and smaller and smaller. And so the reason that we examine population structure is so that we can see these types of trends for future planning. So specifically for higher education or the higher education uh, business, we are concerned at this trend of there being less and less and less young people, because we're already seeing less, or we're already seeing a smaller pool of college age students. We're already seeing that. And it's not that there's anything wrong, it's just that the fertility rates are going down. I guess it could be seen as something wrong because there are going to be less young people available to go to college. And so at Tennessee State University, where we are 70% funded by tuition, not the state, we get 70% of our budget from tuition. You can see the problem that might come about if there are less and less students who can pay that tuition to fund the university. And so colleges and universities have to become a lot more creative in attracting students, because now it's becoming a lot more competitive. We have to plan what's going to happen when these numbers get smaller and smaller. What are we going to do? Can we do the same thing we've always done and get the same amount of students? No, we have to do something to up our efforts as we see these new trends. Uh, and so um, academic institutions look at these data. Obviously, people in sales look at these data. Um, People in the health field look at these data. That's why we look at population structure. Another variable that we can see clearly, perhaps, is life expectancy. And so notice, if for us, if we look on the left-hand male side of this graph and the right-hand female side, when we get to ages 79 years and older, we can clearly see that there are more women than men in the older age groups. And there are reasons for that. Now, you notice that when we looked at the youngest cohort, 0 to 4, that there are more males than females. So there are more male babies born than female babies, but male babies are more likely to become victims of infant mortality. And so infant mortality rate, or the number of deaths per 1,000 live births in the first year of life. So when babies die before they reach 1 year of age, that's infant mortality. Male babies are more likely to die this way. And so that's the first part of where we start to lose ground on women in terms of numbers. Next, young men tend to engage in dangerous activities, drive too fast, drinking, and of course, fighting and violence. And so one sad statistic in terms of mortality or cause of death, otherwise known as COD, specifically for African American males, is that the leading cause of death for African American males in the United States is homicide between the ages of 15 and 34. No other demographic group has that distinction. And what's even sadder is that in 90% of the cases, the individual who kills that Black man is another Black man. So this phenomenon is not necessarily, it is a crime problem per se, but it's really being treated as a health problem. Why is this? Why is this happening? But all men, Black, white, otherwise, engage in this kind of violent behavior, and that removes more men from the population than women at those ages. Then, of course, when men get older, we tend not to take care of ourselves. We don't go to the doctor, If we get hurt, we ignore it. I mean, we're socialized to be tough. You feel pain, you ignore it. If a woman feels pain, she goes right to the doctor. Man feels pain, I'm all right, I'm good. And then the next thing, you're at this guy's funeral, right? Um, and so there's a whole industry, a whole media campaign to try to get men to go get a checkup, take care of yourself. You know, don't try to be a tough guy. Um, and so, you know, our inability to take care of ourselves as men results in premature death, dying of completely preventable diseases such as prostate cancer, right? Which I think African American men died 3 times the rate of that than other men. Married men live longer than single men for just that reason. So if you happen to be married and you say, "Oh, I got a little indigestion," your wife or your life partner is going to say, "Oh no, we're going straight to the doctor, straight to the doctor." But it's just, I think it's just heartburn. Oh no, all right. Had that same man been single, said, "Oh, I just got a little heartburn," and it turned out to be something else. Next thing you know, you're at his funeral, right? So there are a number of reasons that, um, if we go into the Population Reference Bureau table and we scroll to life expectancy for the United States and Canada, here are the raw numbers. So here you can see for the United States, men's life expectancy is 76 years of age. Females' life expectancy is 81. If we were to break that down further by race, I believe that African American males' life expectancy is about 65, maybe 64. And after COVID-19, 2020, who knows, right? So there's another even greater disparity when we break down life expectancy by race. So we can look at these numbers even more closely than this in order to parse out specific variables that might impact life expectancy. And that's why we do these types of analysis, not just to count people. It's very important in business and other aspects of life. Okay, so another very important variable that we look at is the population doubling time. So the population doubling time is based upon the rate of natural increase. So if we go to this table, you notice that the rate of natural increase is this variable in this column here. Notice for Canada, it's 0.2%. For the United States, it's 0.3%. Relatively low rate of natural increase. But then what does that all mean? Well, we use a mathematical trick to make these numbers seem more tangible. So if we go back to the textbook, you'll see here it says a population increase of, well, a natural rate of increase of 1% will lead to a population doubling time of 70 years. An increase of 2% means a 35-year doubling. 3% equals 23 years. So if you've noticed here, there's a mathematical trick that can be used where we just divide 70 by the rate of natural increase. So if the rate of natural increase is 1%, 70 divided by 1 is 70 years. If it's 2%, 70 divided by 2 is 35 years. If it's 3%, 70 divided by 3 is about 23 years. So using the double time versus only the rate of natural increase gives us a much better visual on the projected growth and its potential impacts over time. So for instance, if I was to tell you before this, oh, this population is growing at 3% per year, you would think, oh, well, that's not that. It's only 3%. It's not 50%. It's not 25%. It's only 3%. But at a 3% per year rate of growth, the population is going to double. There's going to be twice as many people in only 23 years. So in only 23 years, you're going to need twice as much food, twice as much water, twice as many hospitals, twice as many schools, twice as much housing in 23 years. And if you look at that table, most of the countries that have the highest doubling time, excuse me, the shortest time to double are the less wealthy countries in the world. So they're already less wealthy, and they're going to need twice as much of everything in about 20 some years. Right. And so this is why population management used to be called population control, but this is why population management is so important. Because at some point, if we outpace, if we as humans in any nation outpace the ability to feed the population, you can see that that can be quite serious. And so that's why we use this doubling time as a means of really hammering home the urgency that is present in some of these countries in terms of managing their populations. And population management is not, it's not an easy thing. You might think, well, why don't these people just stop having all these babies? Right? Why don't they just stop? They can see what's going to happen, but there are all kinds of influences upon population and people and societies that foster population growth. I think about it. I mean, reproducing is a natural instinct for the survival of the human race. I mean, that is not something that we can turn off, right? If we just turned it off, then we wouldn't be here. And to some degree, population control can be problematic. I already mentioned the issue with higher education and our not having enough young people to go to college. There are labor issues. After the millennials, this big millennials, that you all are going to retire eventually. Who's going to replace you to do all the work, to build bridges, to be doctors, and to do other things that society needs, right? And there's going to be more people, but maybe less of a workforce. That's a problem. What about defending the country? Who goes into the military? Not old people like me. I'm not shooting anybody. You know, young people get recruited to go to the military. And so if you have less and less and less young people being born, guess what? That's less and less and less people to go into the military. That could be seen as problematic, right? So population management is tricky. You know, I mean, you don't want to completely cut off population growth, but you don't want it to be out of control. But then you don't want it to be so low that you can't fulfill some of the needs of society, right? So population management is a very tricky, very difficult and touchy subject. You know, not all cultures believe in contraception, much less abortion, right? So they're still at the contraceptive pre-abortion stage. And that's going to result in more children if a nation is predominantly Catholic or predominantly Muslim, right? I mean, people will compromise on a lot of things, but people will not compromise on their beliefs most of the time. You don't, if your faith says you don't believe in abortion, you're not going to change your mind next week or next year or maybe never. You'll change your mind about a lot of things, but not that. Okay, so it's not, and I can just go on in terms of how difficult it is to manage population. It's not easy. It's not easy. Um, so when we again, look at population management in our part of the world. Our issue is not necessarily um, that it's out of control. We can see that it's relatively low. This is the the Census International Database, which is found in your reading materials. The U.S. Census Bureau International Database, and so I entered Canada into the search bar here, and it gives the population, the annual growth rate, life expectancy at birth for both genders, um, so on and so forth. And so a few graphs, notice growth rates in decline. And here's the population pyramid for Canada. And so you'll notice you see an even more um, distinct representation or visualization of the fact that there's more women than men. You can clearly see here the baby boomer population, and then the millennials here, and then you can clearly see how the numbers of young people are getting less and less and less and less over time. So you will work with this tool, the Population Reference Bureau, the U.S. Census database later on, well, probably next week when you do the quiz. So I just wanted us to get an introduction to population geography and specifically make reference to variables associated with the United States and Canada, since that is our unit. And so this is a very useful tool for that. I think there is anything else we need to cover today. On Wednesday, we will focus upon the urban geography of North America. And if you notice, let's see if they still have that variable, that is percent of the population that is urban. Sometimes these charts, let's see, population percent. Let's see. Yes, so notice the United States and Canada, over 80% of our population in the United States and Canada is urban or lives in cities. Whereas other parts of the world, notice those numbers are much lower. And so a lot of rural population, other parts of the world versus urban. And so we're somewhat unique, we mean the United States, is somewhat unique in that regard, in that we have a very urbanized population. So next time we'll focus upon the urban geography of North America. Okay, so does anyone have any questions at this point about anything?
I have a question, sir.
Yes.
So for the exam, I've done my exam and I turned it in, and I showed you the link for it, and it said that you graded it as a 0. No, I still have it up. Do you want me to screen share to show you that I've done the exam? Because I don't want a 0 for something that I know that I've done and turned in.
Let's talk about that offline. You can either give me a call or email me later.
Okay, cool.
Okay.
All
Any
right.
other questions? Okie dokie. So I'm going to stop recording.